All right, friends, it's Seaman. We're back again with another Blaha video. We're going to react to this video Blaha has just uploaded. So, we're going to react to the gym lifting, recruiting, fitness, gear slave himself, Jason Blaha. Blaha says, is this exercise good for gaining muscle? How to know? How will we know if this exercise is good for, what is it? Gaining muscle. Wow.
What makes an exercise a good exercise for gaining muscle? Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Thought I would chat with you guys and gal a little bit about this today, but a quick reminder, if you guys will please click like down below, it'd be greatly appreciated. If you're not following or subscribed, please do so, and if you will be kind enough to drop me a comment down below, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Now, you guys will notice, unless I am specifically doing speed strength or something for conditioning or something else, or specific max effort lifts, all of my exercises that I do are geared towards gaining muscle, right? So when I'm not running conjugate...
All of his exercises are geared towards building muscles. Well, that would be a lie because he's doing powerlifting here. So that's not towards gaining muscle. If you're not damaging muscle, you're not building muscle. If you're not damaging muscle, Blaha's not building muscle. Get it, man? So yeah, are there exercises that are better than others for damaging muscle? Yes, there are some that damage much better than others. That's all. It's something that you would have to experience and figure out on your own. But if you stick to something all the time that you think is giving you enough damage and not doing the other exercises to find out whether they give you more damage and more growth, then whatever it is you're doing there. See, here's the thing. Some will give you better damage and better growth. You understand me? Than other exercises. But all exercises, if done vigorously, intensely, will get you muscle damage. You understand me? Okay, look, I'll explain this one more time. All exercises, if done intensely and vigorously, will lead to muscle damage. But some exercises, if done specifically, will get you more damage and get you more growth. See the difference now? Okay, yeah. I don't know. Maybe people might understand that. Maybe they won't understand that.
Or you look at a program like I'm doing right now, which is where all this footage is coming from.
Yeah.
Everything is built to gain muscle. Notice everything I do is 5.
Everything is built to gain muscle. Everything is built to gain muscle, whatever Blaha does. Well, that's bullshit, but whatever. I never heard that one before. Built to gain muscle. There's nothing that is built to gain muscle. But it may be sarcoplasmic. All the exercise he does will build sarcoplasmic muscle. Yeah, artificial muscle.
Reps. Everything is relatively simple exercises, and what you'll see demonstrated in this video throughout here are examples of what we mean. And I'm not saying isolation doesn't have its place. I do tons of isolation, right? I'm big on laterals, rear delts, curls. Isolation doesn't have its place. I do tons of isolation, right? I'm big on lateral.
What? Isolation doesn't have, I don't think isolation doesn't have its place. What do you mean has its place? Yeah, of course it has its place.
Those rear delts, curls, calf raises. But just examples through this video, you're going to see squats, you're going to see deadlifts, bench press, you're going to see weighted pull-ups, you're going to see barbell pullovers. Okay, these
look. I talked about I put up a small video and I just talked about. I said, look at this guy doing a deadlift. This is like if you're standing on something, you're getting what we would call an eccentric deadlift. Well, people do it with Zercher. They call it Zercher. So they're squatting. You could say squatting. They're squatting in an eccentric with doing Zercher. I can show you a guy, Sanganashi or whatever his name is. I did a video once on him. He was doing I like this. I like his channel. He's okay, even if he is taking steroids, but whatever. The point is, he does Zerchers and he does them eccentrically. A lot of his exercise he does eccentrically. He does Zerchers eccentrically. Now think about it. A Zercher eccentrically. Now, what's the difference between a Zercher and a deadlift eccentrically? You're doing it eccentrically. Not much difference. other than he has the weights on his elbows, on his arms. A deadlift, you're holding onto the bar and you're lifting it. Okay, can you do that eccentrically with your legs, lifting up? Doing a deadlift? Yes, of course, you could. Nobody out there does it because the difficulty of it. See what I mean? They're more interested in performance. It looks good. It looks better because you could lift more concentrically, because eccentric is very difficult for people to do. They can't do it because they never practiced at doing it. So it's too difficult for them. They're weak there. They're weak in trying to do a deadlift eccentrically. Now, I'm not saying that a deadlift is not eccentric if you're lowering it, even if you are standing, pretty much standing up, right? You're in a stand, kind of like in a standing position, and now you're lowering the weight. You are lowering it, you're picking it up and you're lowering it. That's mostly isometric. I'll explain this. Okay. So the deadlift, the way people do it conventionally, is really isometric because you're holding something, you're holding a heavy weight. The only thing that is moving is your back area, your lower back area is kind of moving, and a bit of your legs. Your legs are engaged slightly, and your back is engaged. So you're lifting up and then you're lifting down. But your arms, they're isometric. They're not moving anywhere. Your upper back and your leg, your arms, your shoulders, they're not really moving. They're just like a hinge. So, yeah. But your legs also are concentric. They're in a concentric position. They're not eccentric. They're not eccentric. Now here's the thing. You can lift it in a concentric lift, right? Let's say this, for example. You can do this. You can do a deadlift lifting it concentrically, but you can lower it eccentrically with your legs going down at the same time eccentrically. But again, people will lower it in a kind of concentric position. They're not bending their legs eccentrically, lowering it down. You understand me? Yeah. You could try that. You understand me? You could lift it up concentrically, but lower it eccentrically. You understand me? You can do that, but nobody does that.
Are easy examples. So, what are we looking for an exercise to be effective for gaining muscle? Okay, what are we looking for?
What are we looking for? An effective exercise for gaining muscle. The one that gives you more variation in that exercise. For an example, in a bench press, in bench press you could do flat, decline, and incline sets, right? So there's different variations for the chest. And when you're doing weighted dips, there's only one variation. You're going up and down in that one motion. You can't really adjust yourself on the weighted dip. That's the problem. It looks impressive. You could put a lot of weight on a belt, eventually with the time. It looks really cool, but bench press is always going to be superior to the dip because the bench press has different variations. You can hit all angles of the chest, upper, middle, and lower, which you really can't do on the dip. I'm sorry, man. It just is like that, bro. See what I mean? Not to say that the dip is not a good exercise. It will give you a relative amount of damage, for sure. But which one will give you more damage and which one has more variation? The bench press. Plus, you could do dumbbells or a barbell on the bench press.
We're looking for simplicity to some extent, right? We need an exercise that is not extremely complicated to learn. Yes, I understand the back squat and
We need an exercise that is not complicated to understand, okay?
the bench press are on the most complicated end of these basic movements, right? So these represent the most extreme. They actually are very complicated in a lot of ways. They do require certain coordination.
Look, have you ever seen circus throws? People do circus throws with these big dumbbells. You take a dumbbell and you throw it up in the air, and then Now you're getting the eccentric. Look, a good majority of people, they do circus throws. They throw this heavy dumbbell up in the air, which they couldn't manage doing it anyways, lifting it by themselves. So they throw it up. But they're getting an eccentric coming down. Is that a good thing? Yeah. Is it really good for causing damage in that area to get your shoulder to come back bigger and stronger? Not necessarily. Not really necessarily. You're really looking for specific movements, things that you're doing to get you the most damage so you can come back bigger and stronger. That's all really. It's something that you're going to have to experiment and figure out.
Deadlift is relatively uncomplicated once you learn it. I can teach someone a perfect deadlift in 60 seconds. They're ready to compete. They're ready to go to powerlifting meets as soon as they get stronger. Perfect technique. I can teach you in a minute.
He could teach you in a minute. He'd get them really strong so they could go and compete in these meets. Yeah, okay.
That's an easy exercise, right? It's not much more complicated than a curl.
Yeah, I could too. You want to know? It's really easy. The big four, right? I just get you to start with a light weight and get you to come in every day and try to increase it by, I don't know, maybe, a half a pound or a pound. A pound every day. Keep coming in every day, lifting these weights, shocking the nervous system. Keep adding a pound every single day. And just keep adding a pound, adding a pound, adding a pound. That's all. Or whatever, 2.5 pounds or a pound, whatever, these small weights. That's all we'd have to do. And you'd get really good at doing these stupid lifts, okay? But you're not going to really build your body up.
If you know how to set up, it really is just a setup. But that aside, these others, yeah, they're more complicated, but what are we looking for? We're looking for exercises that are easy to learn. If you're having to spend for your rep work, if you're doing a 5 to 10 rep set on an exercise or a 5 to 12,
We're looking for exercises that are easy to do what? To work? Okay.
and you have to stand there and concentrate on 3 different cues for the form, it's a problem. Okay, simplicity to learn. Okay.
Simplicity to learn. How hard is it to learn? Lift and drop the weight. Lift the weight up and drop the weight. Pick it up and bring it back down. Bring it up and bring it back down. Now, how difficult is that? I love Blaha. It's ridiculous.
Simplicity to learn.
It is simple.
Right, that's big on the list. Number
Look,
one.
let's see. Let's learn now. Watch Blaha. Let's see. Let's learn how to lift the weight. Ready?
Number 2, does the exercise take the target muscles through a sufficient range of motion? Now, again, people will argue that the deadlift might be on the
So Blaha lowered the weight. Okay.
extreme end of that. So that's
Now
a
he
perfect
pushed the
example. Okay, that's
Now he lifted the weight. He lowered the weight and he lifted the weight. How hard is that to learn? Come on.
why some of us do deficit deadlifts. I like to do deep deficits sometimes, specifically for that reason, right? Those deeper deficits.
Deeper deficit deadlifts. Look, Blaha does the same deadlifts over and over and over again, 1 or 2 reps. That's about it. He does the same stuff over and over and over again. He hasn't done anything new in deadlift. Here's the thing. If you haven't done anything new in deadlift, like eccentrically, you could try some eccentric deadlifts, whether you're picking them up eccentrically or lowering them eccentrically with your legs going down, or either starting from the down position going up. Either way, if you haven't tried any of those kind of exercises, maybe you should. I don't know. You should try it. Yes.
Sits will sometimes give us a little more range of motion. That is an example of what we're talking about. Like the deadlift takes a lot of those muscles, the glutes and other stuff through an effective range of motion, but it's
No, the way you guys do them, deadlifts, you take them not effective range of motion, short range of motion, very, very, very short.
near the ends of saying, hey, this is short of a range of.
That's why it's a terrible exercise for damaging muscle, deadlift. It's a terrible exercise. It's not going to damage your muscles because the range of motion is very short. Look, watch him.
Motion as you want. So use that as a perfect example of about as extreme as you want to go. Everything else you need to be taking.
Look at where your legs are. Look how much they're bent. Teeny tiny bit. Now watch your back. It's kind of in an angle. It's not not bent all the way down with your head facing the floor.
Muscle through a reasonable range of motion. The muscle or muscles that you are trying to work. And will sometimes
See the position you're in? Now you're lifting. It's a very short range of motion.
on the deadlift give it a little pass
See that? He stopped. He's going to lower it now. He's going to drop it.
because so many
Wow.
muscles are used.
See how he kind of just dropped it?
And we use very large amounts of weight in studies on the deadlift.
Yeah, the muscles are being used, but it's a terrible exercise if you're trying to damage muscles because the range of motion is very short.
Lift half
It's concentric. There's no eccentric here at all.
showed it produces extremely robust hypertrophy. Okay,
He says it produces extremely robust hypertrophy. I am not saying it doesn't. It's isotonic in your arms and your trap area and your shoulder area. That's where it's going to pull on the muscles. But eventually it'll rapidly adapt and there'll be zero growth there. Zero growth. That's why they're all complaining that I got a stronger, but I never got a bigger. Get it? You're not getting a bigger because it's a short range of motion. You're not damaging those muscles.
so again, this is not a case of hypothetical. People can argue all they want. Squats and deadlifts absolutely produce profound muscle in the lab.
Squats and deadlifts, if done in a short range of motion, absolutely do not produce growth. They don't. They don't. They produce the most growth in the eccentric. Deadlift specifically produce the most growth in the eccentric. Now, if you were to do these deadlifts eccentrically, whether you start eccentrically or lower them eccentrically with your legs going down in that position, you understand me? It's very specific how you're lowering the weight. If you do accentuated, let's say you went up in a short range of motion right now. Let's just say, okay? Now you're lowering that weight. But you want a full eccentric, not just eccentric, your upper body is going down eccentrically. You want your legs to go down eccentrically as well. You understand me? This is kind of like a full body workout. You don't even need to do deadlifts. Squats. You could just do it all right here with the deadlift. You understand me? You understand? People ask, what exercise will get me the most damage? Well, if you're gonna do the squat, right? Well, the bar is just on your back. Well, in the deadlift, you're holding on to the bar, so it's isotonic, and then you're getting isometric. So, I don't know, would this be superior? Yeah, because the limb muscles are engaged. So now you can engage your legs if you want. You can make them go down eccentrically. So there you go. You get 2 in 1.
When studied in real human beings, not people's theories. So that's a perfect example. You'll see the lab, they make you big. Okay. What else are we looking for?
I love this.
They make you big. Okay.
You see the lab, they make you big. They make you big. They don't make you big. That's why they're all complaining. That's why Blaha is not big. Because he'd be big.
What else are we looking for? Ease of loading. All right, you have to have a way to correctly load the exercise. If you want to gain muscle, what are we looking for?
Okay.
We need the ability to progressively overload it, and that doesn't mean just reps. This is why people argue, well, you can do a push-up, you can start having people add plates to your back, you can add this, you can add that.
You have to
There's
progressively
an
overload.
ease of loading problem. So again,
Yeah, think about it. Which one would progressively overload the most weight? Where can you progressively overload the most weight? In the concentric or the eccentric? The eccentric. So that would be the best exercise for what? Damaging muscles. Get it, man? Are people really that dumb out there? What is the best? Here's another. That would be another question. What is the best movement in an exercise to cause the most damage? Lifting concentrically or eccentrically? Oh, it's eccentric. Why? Because I could lift heavier in the eccentric than I could in the concentric. You understand me, man? Christ. And I could do rapid movements in the eccentric heavy than I could do in the concentric. Yes.
Example of why for muscle building purposes, like if your goal is to gain muscle and you have access to all these tools.
Yeah. If your mission is to gain muscle and you have all these tools, why wouldn't you lift eccentrically if that's what causes the most damage? And looking for the exercises that have the most variations to cause that damage. You understand what John explained to you? Makes absolutely no sense. Why would you deadlift, right? Like an asshole doing concentric deadlifts if you know that they don't fucking damage you at all in a short range of motion? Do you understand me? So why not fucking do it eccentrically if you already know that it's eccentric exercises that cause this fucking damage? You get it, man? You understand me? That's intelligence. Now, it's not intelligent. And look, I understand. People make mistakes out there, okay? The whole point is to learn from your mistakes. But if you keep doing them over and over again because, well, I look cool doing deadlifts in a short range of motion. But dude, I'm getting a stronger. I ain't getting a bigger. Why? Because you're not doing them eccentrically. Because it's the eccentric that damages muscles and causes them to fucking grow. You understand me, man? The people need to wake up out there in the lifting world.
It's why, say, a push-up doesn't make as much sense as a bench press or a weighted dip. Okay?
The bench press or the weighted dip. Again, I'm going to tell you, which is the best exercise for building muscle? Eccentric exercises are the best exercises for building muscle. Now let's move on to which ones will get you the most damage in the eccentric lifting these weights. Well, they will all get you damage, right? Because you're lifting what? Eccentrically, right? But guess what? There are some that have more variations in that exercise that can cause more damage for you. So you don't have to keep coming back, wasting your time. All right?
Why? Well, number one, it's even harder. You have to have other special equipment to even get the range of motion on it, for one. Like, you've got to be doing all dumbbells or other bars.
Okay, whatever.
Getting the hands in position, but the big issue, ease of loading. It's really hard to load. Okay? Same thing, people are over here trying to do whatever, some sort of donkey kickback or whatever with bands or anything with these, hip circles and stuff. You're not able to easily load this. Like, in order for an exercise to be a really good choice, a good choice for gaining muscle, you need to be able to load it easily in small increments. Like, you need to be looking at it and going, can I add 2.5 or 5 pounds to this exercise consistently? Like, do I have a way to add 2.5, or 5 week after week? Not your strength going up, but your ability to load that movement. Progressive overload is the driver of hypertrophy.
Progressive overload is the driver of hypertrophy. Yes, progressive overload eccentrically is the driver of hypertrophy.
And it can't just be, well, I'm just going to do more and more reps. Okay, so this is problematic eventually. Whereas, so something like a push-up, just a wide variety of movements that people do. You can't load it easily. Can you load it with weights? Okay. And that's a problem for some stuff. Again, this is why you're going to have limited results. Or people are like, well, I'll just go to this one-arm calisthenics. That is a massive jump, and now you've changed the form. It's a different exercise.
Yeah.
Now you're dealing with balance issues. Now you're dealing with other problems. Same thing, so people are like, well, you just go from whatever to a one-arm pull-up. No. Weighted pull-up, a weighted chin-up. You add weight. We have weight belts. We have ways to add weights. You can do it with backpacks. Weight belts are the most common. Okay? You have to have the ability to load it correctly. And you have to have a way to progressively overload it easily. And I'm not saying things that can't build up.
Okay, yeah, progressively overloaded, yes.
So what we're talking about is being a good exercise.
Sure.
Right? It needs to be a good exercise.
Yeah.
And I would say the next one on top of that behind it is going to be how much balancing do we have to do? About the limit of what you're going to want to do is going to be a back squat or a split squat. okay? And a split squat for some people is too much. This is why I like a Bulgarian split squat, but not everyone even has the balance to do that. If you are struggling to coordinate the exercise in place of loading it, it is not a good exercise.
You think this is a good exercise for hypertrophy, for building muscle, for damaging muscle? You think this is a good exercise doing that? No, it's not. It's a frivolous exercise what Blaha's doing here. So there are things that people are doing that can be considered frivolous, right? You're looking for the exercise that will get you the most amount of damage. Now, if you're personally asking me, my advice is free weights are really the best. Cable machines have their place. Using cable machines, they're great, but I wouldn't stay there forever with a cable machine. I'd be trying to figure out how to utilize like these. That's why they have dumbbells. So how to utilize free weights like dumbbells, barbells, okay? It's something you're going to have to figure out on your own. There are ways to accomplish certain exercises you're trying to do to get this damage, specifically in the eccentric.
Exercise for you for building muscle. And some stabilization is good. Some stabilization is good, but if it's at the ease of loading, it's a problem. I mean, that's also a perfect example of why I don't ever use dumbbell presses as a primary for any of my lifters. We'll use a barbell. And then as a secondary lift, once we're fatigued and we can justify the slightly lighter weight, because you're having to balance the two dumbbells to get them in position, it makes a lot more sense. And plenty of top bodybuilders have found this to be the case too. Ronnie Coleman, Arnold, so on. They'll do a barbell bench and they'll do the dumbbells after. So again, knowing the place where to put it too.
Again, he keeps talking about steroid people, Arnold, this, that, whatever. Arnold took drugs before his competition. He looked like shit. And before the Mr. Olympia, he took a bunch of drugs. That's all. That's what he did. Like 2 or 3 months before the competition, he would take a shitload of drugs and then show up. He was busy most of the year working. He had to work. People had to work back then. The only competition Arnold ever showed up for was the Mr. Olympia. He didn't go to other events. He only did one event, and it was only once a year, right? Once a year. These other bodybuilders that make it like, oh, I got to make it a job. They're going like from competition to competition, thinking they can make a job out of it or a lifestyle out of it. They're crazy. But now with social media, you can, because you got social media, whatever. So these people stay there forever. They don't have normal jobs. But people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, all these other guys, they were construction and stuff. They had jobs, bro. You think they were lifting weights all year round? They had their job. They probably lifted here and there sometimes, but they didn't need to because they took steroids. Like Kevin Laroni, he wouldn't lift the entire year. He went off cycle, and he would only go back on cycle the last couple of months before the Olympia or something, or a competition he was doing. Some competition, he'd go on cycle. That's the whole point. Listen to the word cycle. I went back on cycle. Why would they go back on cycle? Because it doesn't build muscle. It doesn't do anything. It gives you the illusion of muscle. So they go on cycle, right? They create this artificial fake look, this cosmetic stage look. Then they go on stage and they perform. And then they go off cycle. Get it? Because it's fake. You understand me? So everything Blaha is doing here in the garage, if he's taking steroids, it's fake. Everything he's doing here is fake. I'm building muscles. I'm building strength. You're not building strength because you're injecting strength. You're not building muscles because they're not building muscles. You're adapted. You're building sarcoplasmic muscles, and then they go away. When you go off what? When you go off cycle. Fake. Get it?
But definitely if you're fighting with balance, a pistol squat, something on a Bosu ball, anything to where your balance is potentially limiting the loading is not a good exercise for gaining muscle, because progressive overload is king. All right, so there's how we would define a good exercise.
Progressive overload is king. Yeah, in eccentric, it's king, yes. In concentric, it could be just for the nervous system. That's about it.
Gaining muscle.
But not for damaging muscle. It's not, progressive overload concentrically is not good for damaging muscle, whatever. I'll see you in the next one, a short range of motion. Doesn't work. It's associated with loss of muscle. You're shortening your muscles. You're going to the gym lifting concentrically to shorten your muscles, make them small. That's great. And then expand the sarcoplasm. Okay. See you in the next one. Ciao, friends. Tell what you think about that. Like, subscribe, support the channel. This is hilarious.